Now in its 10th year, this is Gabnet. Talk like you've never heard it before.
Live from Harlem in New York City, it's me, it's Alex, and this is the Ramble. That gentleman sitting right there is Mike Chisholm. Yeah,
gentleman.
with
Let's
all
use
his
that word
all
gently.
his
Man.
late show gear around him, and a picture of Shecky.
Right there.
Yeah,
Our boy.
Mike
Our boy. I wouldn't know you if it wasn't for Rick.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't know Rick if it weren't for, Steve Weiner.
For Steve Weiner.
Life
Steve,
is a bunch of coincidences, isn't it?
Oh man, and the more that go by, Alex, I more believing that we are in some sort of simulation, or I believe there are no coincidences. Like my whole thing, like the idea, I've become friends with Robert Morton. Robert Morton loved you, was a fan of yours. You know, getting to know Rick. That got me here, and if it wasn't for being on your Monday show, the Letterman podcast wouldn't even exist. I don't know, man. There are so many coincidences that it makes me think it's not coincidental.
Well, as somebody said, that's a coincidence. Well, that's what a coincidence is.
Yeah.
You know,
there's just so many of them. There's so many of them.
Yeah. Well, we assign to them some kind of supernatural ability or function.
Yep.
And I don't know that I agree with that. You know,
you don't believe in the law of attraction?
Coincidence is just what it is. Coincidence. Yeah. The word says it all. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have never met Rick if I didn't know Steve Weiner.
Yep.
And I wouldn't know Rick if Steve Weiner hadn't decided to make Rick a birthday present for me or for him.
Yeah. For him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll never get tired of that story. I love it.
Yeah, yeah. I was a very cheap birthday present. No, it's because Rick enjoyed my radio show, and so Steve, because he knew me, figured he would have me show up at a birthday party for Rick as kind of a present to Rick. So I showed up. He asked me to show up, and I did.
Alex, that must have happened a lot in your career. You must have had a lot of people who knew you or had access who would leverage that for, not for bad things.
Many times you
must have had that a lot.
Many times I would turn it down. That particular time I didn't. I guess because I kind of liked Steve Weiner.
Sure.
So I was kind of doing it as a favor to him, not as a favor to a guy I didn't even know.
Yep. And
then I met him, and we became, right then, fast friends. And we stayed that way. You know, what happens is, in this business, you move from place to place. That was in New York. I moved to California. Now, you move to California, you make a whole bunch of different friends. You hardly talk to the old ones.
Yeah.
I talked to Rick every Saturday. It was usually about 1 o'clock. This went on for years, So he was always my friend, whether I was in California or whether I was in New York or whether I was somewhere else, Mm-hmm. And he's the one that ultimately convinced me to come back to New York because he felt I could get a job here, and I got a job at Sirius XM, So that was my life, okay?
I can see how you two would talk a lot when you were doing live, because at the end of the day, you're both in the comedy world in different respects, and you have people on your show, and he has people that were on whichever incarnation of the Letterman show it happened to be. You two had lots to talk about when it came to that stuff that was constantly refreshing itself. If you had somebody who maybe was promoting a movie that was on late night or late show, and then they'd come over to your show, whatever, you two always had industry stuff to talk about that you were both interested in.
Yeah, we had industry stuff, but it was we talked more about trivia.
Yeah.
And he gave me a real insight into old movies. Now, I never was into silent films before I met Rick, and he turned me on to them. and I always enjoyed stuff that existed before I was born.
Yeah.
And he lived entirely in that world of things that existed before he was born. And I think the trouble with people today is they really don't care much for things that happened before they were born.
Yeah.
Like I was thinking today about your podcast, David Letterman, all of that. You're going to find this hard to believe, but there are people. How long has Letterman been off the air?
It'll be 10 years in May that he left the Late Show.
10 years in May. Okay.
Yeah.
There are kids right now who are 15 years old who never heard of David Letterman.
Absolutely.
As the years go by, Dave will become more of a ghost.
Yep.
And that the idea of even doing a Letterman podcast would be a waste of time. Because you know what I'm saying? I mean, not for you, not 100%. For you because it interests you, but for a public as a whole, they move on to other stuff. I mean, there are kids out there who do not know who John Lennon was.
Yep. Well, and the example I use is Carson. Like I would say this to Rick, when we were discussing the idea of me even doing this show, and I said it's astounding to me. Johnny Carson was the biggest star in the world, and from the entertainment perspective, he was the biggest star in the world. At that time. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And now there are so many people who have never even. They don't even know who Johnny Carson is. And to me, it's like, okay, if that happens to Dave, it's going to happen a little bit slower because of this show that we're doing here. And I think that was part of the
I don't think you're going to slow it down. You can't stop time. And you can't stop the fact that let me put it this way to people. You never heard of David Letterman, you don't care about David Letterman, he wasn't on your radar. Go back and watch his stuff on YouTube, and you will be endlessly entertained. And I'm saying that because I'm not being an old fart. You will just entertain. Funny is funny. Funny remains funny. It is eternal. Okay.
Yes.
And if you don't watch David Letterman, you're depriving yourself of a good laugh. That's all.
Yes.
Period. The same thing is true of Carson, although in a way, I oddly think, and Dave would hate hearing this, that Johnny Carson was not as good as David Letterman.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
I completely agree. I think Dave's wit is razor sharp, and Johnny had great wit, but Dave's, in my opinion, is a league ahead of it.
Yeah, well, the thing was with Carson, when I was out of work at one point, a lot of points I was out of work. I was out of work, and it was late at night, and I turned on the Carson show on TV. And I didn't watch the Carson show that much, and I watched him, and I said, this guy is a master of his art. I was just, as one broadcaster looking at another broadcaster, I was absolutely awed at his skill. Well, that was before Dave.
Yeah.
And when Dave happened, Dave brought to the table something so fresh and so new and much funnier, by the way, than Carson ever got. Carson was glib. Carson knew how to interview people, let them pretty much handle the show, get the laughs, I think actually, if he were to be honest with us, Letterman was a terrible interviewer in the beginning. If you look at the early shows, terrible interview. He got better and better and better.
Yep.
But that was never the thing I think he enjoyed doing most. I think he enjoyed all the other stuff.
Yep.
And the interviews simply filled out time.
It's interesting. You go back and you think about a guy like Tom Snyder. And when in the mid 90s, when Dave got a chance to help sculpt the 12:30 time slot at CBS, he brought over Tom Snyder, and there was a big press conference, and at that press conference, Dave said that he believed, and this is before VCRs and whatnot. So after the Tomorrow Show, which would be on after Johnny Carson ended, Dave said that he probably watched 80% of Tom Snyder's broadcasts. And now this is a guy who was doing long form. And so I look at where Dave is at in his career right now. And the influence of Tom Snyder was there from the very, very beginning. And by that point in his career, he had become a much better interviewer. I couldn't agree with you more. One of my favorite video collections on Don Giller's channel, let's give Don Giller's channel a plug, as well as the Letterman channel. You're right. Endless entertainment that is timeless, is the talk show series. And I think it's 5 or 6 parts, and each one is like 90 minutes long, and it's in chronological order for each talk show host.
Yeah.
Every appearance they made on Letterman's program. And you go through and you watch him at the beginning where he's interviewing Jack Parr, or he's interviewing, Steve Allen and whatnot. And you see, the adolescence in interviewing at that point. But then you watch it in order, and you see the progression and how good he gets in between visits. And he becomes a master at it, kind of like what you were talking about with Carson. And I look at what Dave's doing now on Netflix, and he is a master like Tom Snyder was when it comes to long form.
I feel the interviews he's doing on Netflix are not quite as good. He's not doing it as well as he used to.
You think?
Yeah, I think being.
Did you see the Miley Cyrus episode that just came out?
Yeah, it was a good episode, but it wasn't great.
Interesting.
I think that because he's been off the air for quite a while. Listen to me. For quite a while, he's lost his chops. You don't do it every day. I mean, if you don't do it every day, you're not exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I keep doing this. It's like a muscle.
Yep.
If you don't use it, it atrophies. Or if you don't use it for a while, you have to run a lot in order to get that muscle going again. But in the short forms that he's doing on Netflix, he doesn't have the opportunity. So he's really just in, what can I call it? He's in some kind of mode where he's just going back to what he did.
I look at the episode that came out recently. They didn't put it in the new season, but they just released it as a one shot with John Mulaney. And I really thought the thing about the program is, and you might be right, there might be opportunities that get missed and things where he's going through the long form, but you could tell how carefully and meticulously it's made. Just in the cuts, you've got the scene with John in Chicago in front of an intimate theater, which is nice. But then you got the cuts of him back at his school, and then the dinner with John and his dad, talking about some pretty vulnerable things from 3 guys who I wouldn't classify as vulnerable people.
Yeah, and it was good. Wait a minute, I'll agree with you. It was good, but it wasn't great. It wasn't.
Gotcha.
It wasn't what I want out of Dave.
In your mind, what is Great Dave?
Well, Great Dave died with the Late Show.
With Late Show,
okay. It died with Late Show, and it probably died earlier than that. It probably died at heart operation.
You think? And there's a lot of folks who believe the change after that. Yeah.
Yeah. In the beginning, before heart operation, he would go out and be at a Jack in the Box, trying to serve food to people. Okay.
Yep.
In post heart problem, he would send, like, what's his name, the guy who runs the deli.
Send Rupert.
Rupert out with an earphone and tell him what to do.
Yep.
So the whole energy changed.
Yep.
Okay. And then he was kind of in what I call automatic mode. Prior to that, he had the energy, he had the spirit, everything. Yep. After that, it changed. So there is a difference there. Talking to folks on the show, on our show, who worked for the show, there is definitely a line of demarcation, if I'm using that term right. I don't think I am. There is definitely a line where it was pre-heart surgery and post-heart surgery. Dave at that point recognized, okay, I'm getting older. I need to conserve energy and use it where it's necessary. He wouldn't come down to rehearsal anymore at that point. Just talking with Anton the other day, and because Dave used to come around and mess around with Anton's drums all the time. He used to get behind Anton's drum kit and muck around with the drums. Well, that stopped after the heart surgery. Mm-hmm. And he'd be up in the office, and the feed, of course, would go up there, and he would get the gist of what the show was going to be about. But he would save some of the segments and whatnot for the actual show, so he could give the energy to the show. So there's a definite, and noticing that tone is for certain. I think there's also a sense of vulnerability once you've had your heart worked on. you know,
Yes.
and so therefore your things that once seemed important to you no longer are important.
Yes.
You know, I mean, I don't
Could
know.
not agree more.
I've never had a heart problem. I never had a heart operation, but I can imagine how that would change you. You know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That first night back. I mean, and, you know, my dad had a quadruple bypass long time ago, and I remember when he came back. At that point, you know, he had to fly to Vancouver to get it, and carefully, gingerly come home, that sort of a thing. And his emotions had changed at that point.
That's
Forever
right.
changed. But at the beginning, especially, they were right at the surface. And if you watch the episode where they after coming back for the heart surgery, where Dave brings out the surgical team and whatnot, like even as he's about to introduce them, he gets choked up. And for Dave, that is a very rare instance. It didn't happen very often at all that he would get choked up. But he even started to say, and now the people who saved my life. And as he started to say save my life, it's right there. Harry being born, I think, is another example of what you're talking
I
about.
think that
vulnerability.
changed. I think that changed his life. You know,
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that edge that he had, the thing that we liked about him was the edge. What we liked was the how can we call it, the laughing in the face of your employer. You know, things like that. Stuff that he did that was bold. After those incidents, after the heart operation and Harry being born,
Yep.
that all went away. There was
Well, it would have little moments. You'd see little moments, like the John McCain moment, when John McCain did his little dipsy doodle, and that was, as far as I'm concerned, that is a modern classic television Letterman moment.
In case people don't know what we're talking about, Letterman was supposed to have McCain on the show, and McCain said he couldn't. He had to fly back to Washington, and there were some things that were
to
happening
save
in
the economy.
country.
He had to fly back to Washington to save the economy. That's what he had
Save
to
the
do.
economy, and then they tune over to the feed. CBS has feeds of all their shows as they're being done, and they look, and there's John McCain doing the
Couric.
with Katie Couric, right? And so Dave just went off on him. Well, I think anybody would have gone off on him. You know.
Oh, it was perfect. It was one of my first conversations with Rick, when Rick and I connected, and he, you know, realized I wasn't a crazy person, or at least the bad crazy, whatever I am. That was one of the first moments. Vinny Favali, that's one of the very first moments I asked him about. It's one of my favorite Letterman moments of all time. And it was in '08. It was late Letterman. The other one too is, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I hear where people are coming from when you say this. I get it. I love the classic late night, the inventive stuff, the stuff that was deconstructing the talk show. That's the evolution, and that's a part of the evolution. But when I think about 2010, Dave, when Conan went through his dust up, Late Shift 2 was happening at NBC. And for 2 weeks, Dave was, as far as I'm concerned, the best that he has ever been, going through and just throwing rocks and lampooning NBC every night.
Was that post-heart? Was that post-heart attack?
That was 2010, man. That was 2010 when Conan lost the Tonight Show.
But when was the heart?
99.
99?
So
really?
it was before 9/11. Yeah. So, and okay. Oh, we're leaving out 9/11. 9/11 also.
That was brilliant. That was brilliant. Yeah. The speech he gave about, because he was a New Yorker and it happened in New York, and he was, going to talk about it.
Were you at Sirius for 9/11?
No, I was in California.
You were still in Cali. Okay.
And I'm sleeping, and the phone rings, and I pick it up, and it's Rick.
Oh my God.
And he says to me, "Are you seeing what's happening?" I said, "What do you mean what's happening?" He says, "Oh, well, go over and tune on one of your news channels." And I turned it on, and there's this building that I know of as the World Trade Center, and it's smoking. I said, "What the hell happened?" He says, "A plane crashed into it." And as we're talking, the second plane crashes into it. And I said, "I guess this isn't just an accident." Yeah. So,
man.
When I think about Rick, I think about all the times he was there as part of my life on major moments, and that was a major moment. By the way, earlier on, it looked like we went out of sync, is what happened. So I went to another feed here, and we're in sync.
Oh, you and I? Oh, okay. I haven't. It's been seamless on my end.
Oh, no, because you're watching it on Zoom. I'm recording it on OBS, and sometimes the thing goes out of sync, and I can't ever figure out why. But it does. So
the ones and zeros, and you've been, as a broadcaster, you've been a guy who has been at the forefront when everything went from kind of the analog to digital, that sort of thing. What do you prefer? Like, do you like the old school better? And I know you're nostalgic and whatnot too. Like, do you like the old school way, or are you okay with the ones and zeros and the things that technology has brought with it?
Well, I'm okay with the ones and zeros. I don't mind them. They've never, I always been into science and stuff like that, and always liked anything that improved what I did.
Yeah.
But I do think that the method of communication has changed, and what it's gone from is when I was a broadcaster doing radio.
Yep.
Okay. It was a whole different can of beans. Mm-hmm. And we were professionals who did a show. We prepared for our show in whatever way we prepared for it, and we did it. And they were long form. They were like 3-4 hours, And today, any amateur can have a show. Because
thank God. Oh my God. Thank God for that.
Thank God for that amateur that I'm talking to. But I don't know if that's good. I don't know that when we only had, I don't know, 5,000 broadcast licenses in this country, if that was as terrible as 3 million, 4 million people, I think it's even more than that, doing podcasts. And most of them are amateurs.
Yep.
The only ones that are professionals are out-of-work radio people. So I think that has changed. You would think as technology got better, things would get better, would get more inventive. Tell me of one podcast anywhere that even approaches Letterman.
Like, I look at that, I don't think anything touches Letterman, and that's my thing.
Yeah,
like,
but,
I don't think anything in late night. I don't think anything in late night television touches Letterman.
You would think that if Letterman had created that permission, so to speak, that you would find somebody doing a podcast that's better than Letterman.
Yeah,
because they would have learned from Letterman.
I could not agree more. I could not agree more, and to me, that is part of the reason why the posterity of what it is that we're trying to do here with this is to show how special that show was. And it's not just Dave, it's the people that he surrounded himself with, because he surrounded himself with the best writers and the best producers and the best director, and a combination of old school show business and yet new school cutting edge humor, that sort of a thing. And he put them all together as one, which is why we do the show that we do. I agree. Like, don't get me wrong. I love Kimmel, but to me, Kimmel is doing his very best to pay homage to Dave and have a lot of fun while he's doing it. And which is great. I just don't think it's anything new. I don't think anything out there is new the way Letterman was new. And that's in the television world, that's in the podcast world. I mean, I look at what a guy like John Oliver is doing, and okay, he kind of reinvented what the Daily Show did. And the Daily Show, Jon Stewart went over to the Daily Show, and by the way, Madeline Smithberg, a Letterman alum, he was a huge part of creating what the Daily Show was. I think the Daily Show was just as inventive as what Dave did for late night.
Yeah.
But what's new? I mean, who's the biggest broadcaster, quote unquote, internet broadcaster on the planet? It's Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is bigger than CNN. His audience,
and in my opinion, he sucks.
There you go. But he's also gives people the Carson bump. We wouldn't have Kill Tony, which is one of the biggest shows out there. Kill Tony's a really neat. Okay, if you were to throw out the idea of something that's really inventive and caught on, I would throw out the idea of Kill Tony. And
I never heard of Kill Tony.
You know what, Alex? You may actually really like Kill Tony. You might like Kill Tony. I'm gonna send you some stuff. You might actually. This might be right up your alley.
It's a podcast. I can get it online.
Yeah, it's a live show. Yes, it is absolutely. But it's a live show that happens, and the premise is Tony Hinchcliffe, comedian Tony Hinchcliffe, with a bunch of his cohorts, and people come up and they have 60 seconds. comedians, amateur, professional, whatever. They've got 60 seconds, and it combines everything from a talk show that includes people you've never heard of, which I think Dave was a master at. It includes stand-up, of course, which all the talk shows have always rooted themselves in. It includes that. But it also includes like a bit of a roast mentality as well. And there's a lot of spontaneous wit, and there's crowd participation. So Kill Tony, I think in the modern age might be something, but again, it's completely different.
Listen, we've run out of time here. So why don't you stick around and we'll do another one of these. Just stay where you are. But I finally got us back in sync.
Good.
So for people who are watching us and we went out of sync, I think just close your eyes if you watch this and it's out of sync, because it's just a radio show anyway. So, you know, doesn't matter. Anyway, thank you so much, Mike. This has been fascinating. It's been good. And I got next one, I'm going to ask you some very interesting questions. So
can't wait.
Everybody should make sure that'll be on in a week or so. Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Mike.
I appreciate you very, very more than you'll know, Alex. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Now in its 10th year, this is GabNet. Talk like you've never heard it before.
And that was our good friend and associate, Mike Chisholm. Let me see here. I'm trying to get things just right here. Okay. All righty. Okay. All right. What is my... Why do I sound so loud here? Okay. I guess I'm okay. I guess I'm all right. Hey, you know, it's a one-man show, okay? I have problems. I got to fix them. I got to make them work. Things go out of sync. Sound is a little bit off. You know, it's the way things work. And then I forgot to do this. Now, you see? You can see me really nicely. I have a beautiful picture because I remembered to turn on the lights. Late, but eventually. Okay? Anyway, let me see here. Where are we going to go? Let's bring in the two people who are waiting to do the show tonight. Just two, ladies and gentlemen. Only two. There they are, folks. There's Charlie Wallace, and there's Josh Wheeler. And, okay. Oh, wait a minute. Jeff Stein wants to come in here, so we'll add Jeff Stein to the mix. And we'll say good evening to everybody. How are you all? Folks, there's Charlie Wallace, and there's Josh. Jeff. There you go. You got it, Jeff. You got it.
Give me a break.
You know, one of these days you'll get it completely. You know,
getting better.
Huh? It is getting better. Yeah.
You know.
Focus on the positive stuff.
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. And oh, wait a minute. Here comes some more people. Here comes Alan, and here comes Roberta. Okay, there we go. Now we're on our way to getting a decent looking group here. Let me turn my air conditioning up here. It's getting a little hot again. It gets hot in this studio anyway because I've got all this electronic equipment working, and that causes a problem. So hello, Roberta. Hello, Alan. Oh, God. Anyway, how are you all?
I'm good, thank you.
Doing great.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's new?
Alive.
Every day there's something new, isn't there? Yeah. Today, Trump tried to get us talking about him again, but failed miserably.
Yeah.
What did he do? I missed the news.
Oh, yeah. Then you missed a great show. It was Trump holding a press conference.
Yeah.
And nobody showed up.
There was nobody there?
Nobody showed up, is what I said.
I don't know.
No, there was there were news people there.
For the media, you know, but
they're going to show up because they don't want to miss the freak show.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, they're certainly not able so far to respond to the positive campaign the Democrats are having. I mean, they just they're bursting on. They got momentum. They're raising a lot of money, and polling is starting to show their ideas are taking hold. So I'm sure that does bother him because he's losing.
In some polls, she is ahead by 5 points.
Well, there are some polls now that are starting to ask about the three-way race because, RFK Jr. is going to be on the ballot in many states. And in those states, overall, sometimes it shows her up over 50% and Trump as low as like 42% in the same state because RFK Jr. is getting 5 or 6%. So look, if that's the way it rolls, that's fine. We fucking vote tonight if you want, I mean, let's.
Yeah. Did you get the idea today that he's starting to get worried?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I would imagine that he is. He should be.
You know what? This guy, I'm trying to remember his name, who was his press secretary for about 5 minutes. Do you remember that?
The Spicer guy?
No. What's his name?
Spicer?
No, the other guy.
Scaramucci?
Scaramucci.
Was he?
Yeah.
Oh, he was communications. Yeah.
He said, I saw him in an interview. He said, when Trump is speaking and he goes like this, that's his tell that he's lying.
No, he doesn't do that as often as he lies.
Huh?
He doesn't do that as often as he lies.
Actually, he does that a lot.
He does it a lot.
He does it a lot. He said that's a tell that he's lying. And who would know better? Scaramucci was, with him for a while, even though he didn't hold a post very long. So, what the hell?
Well, it's, now he says he'll be at the ABC debate.
Yeah.
Despite all the reasons that he said he wouldn't be at the debate, none of that has changed, but now all of a sudden he's going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say the reason that he's going to be there is because he has realized, or people have told him that, listen, that you have to, because if you continue to do what you are doing and they continue to do what they are doing, that's not, the math ain't going to add up. So you have to do something.
I think if he does it, it's going to be his funeral.
Yeah.
Then I'll pour one out for him. I don't know what to do.
But then again, I don't know how he can lose a debate to Kamala Harris since she's stupid, right?
That's the problem with,
That's what he says.
Yeah, that's the problem with running your mouth about those things. Look,
but he's not going to lose the debate. I mean, you just turn on Fox after the debate. He will have won it by a landslide. Come on.
I don't even know. What? What were you going to say, Brian?
Oh, I just saying now he's trying to backtrack on what he said about Kamala being. Well, she was Indian. I didn't even know she was black.
No.
And now he starts saying, "Oh, she's the one that should say that," and I would be concerned either way. But I don't care. It's not my choice, and all this stuff. It's ridiculous.
Hey, listen, hold on a second. You're freezing up, and I don't know why. Are you using?
I did this last time.
And you did something that cleaned it up. That cleaned it up. Might be.
Hold on a minute.
Just kept on.
Flick my finger. That'll work.
Yeah.
No, I think it was just 2 days ago, maybe 3 days ago, that he puts this long Shakespearean soliloquy or whatever on his social media deal about how it's all still just a scam and there's no need to debate Kamala because she's not really the nominee, that Crooked Joe is going to come back at the convention and steal it back away from her, and it's a scam. I mean, this was just 2 or 3 days ago, this unhinged thing, and now
this is a guy who doesn't even know the Constitution. He said today, and this was one of his quotes, he said, there is something unconstitutional about what they did to Joe Biden.
Right.
wait a minute. The nomination process isn't in the Constitution.
Right. Well, right. Yeah. I mean, the election of the president, isn't set up like that either. I mean, it's originally, the Electoral College that then is adjusted to what we use it now as representatives to represent us in the Electoral College. And then the states run their elections through primaries. And as long as they make no state law that hinges upon the freedoms guaranteed to you by federal law, which is superior or, supreme, then they may do as they please. The only thing you have to do to be the president of the United States is be a natural born citizen and be above 35 years old. So if the state of Ohio passed a law that says if two people that are registered to vote sign up and say you can be a candidate, we'll put you on our ballot, then I could go do that tomorrow, or they could say it's 100,000, or they could make a law that says we take whoever the nominee is, which is what not all the states do as far as I know. And then they'll take independent candidates like RFK Jr. If within that state he gets whatever it is, 5,000 signatures, 20,000, whatever, by a certain date, they put him on he can blah, blah, blah all he wants, but it doesn't mean anything. I mean, when he says that nonsense, it's almost better. I mean, people were saying for a long time, that just let him talk sometimes, and it's just great. Don't argue with him. Just let him go.
It just becomes word salad. It becomes he's lost all ability at rationality. I mean, this man's crazy. He's like your crazy aging uncle.
It would be perfectly fine, except he's got his media to back him up, to do the spin for him, to be able to then get on and convince the public that everything Trump just said was legitimate and real, and we'll bring on the experts, to tell you.
I'm just wondering, though, how long somebody like Fox is going to stick with him before they
as long as the ratings are in your favor. Yes.
The second that they think that he doesn't make them money anymore, the second after that, they've already moved on. I mean,
they already had a falling out after Biden won. So
to me, they will go right. I mean, as long as they can. And the second that he doesn't make money for them, the one after that, they've moved on to whatever they think will.
So you also have to realize that right now the polls are going in her favor, and she's only been at this about 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
20 days or whatever today, I think.
Yeah. I mean, so it's almost 3 weeks. Yeah. That's pretty remarkable.
Sure. Look, I'm even surprised by it. And that we talked a few months ago privately, our group, and I said, I just don't think she can, and I don't think that's who I would choose and all that. Was wrong.
She surprised
me. Totally
me.
wrong.
She
so
surprised
that's
me.
Great.
Yeah, she surprised me.
There were several groups that I thought were not going to be accepting. And that's the key. As soon as she came in, and they just jumped on the bandwagon. I think it was a cosmic sigh of relief, is what it was.
Yeah, I didn't see. I know Alan's got to go. I mean, I'm just saying I was wrong. I did not see this massive, instant conglomeration of people like at the snap of a finger who all were on the same page.
Alan?
NBC went to universities in the past couple of days around the country and asked how many of the students that were not going to vote are now going to vote. And overwhelmingly, the number has increased to we're voting for Kamala because we now see a president that's going to take us into consideration.
The numbers don't really have to change that much, okay? Because really what we're dealing with here is just getting the Democrats that are out there to get out and vote. And I think they feel energized now to get out and vote.
I mean, in some ways, you could argue they don't have to change at all because Joe Biden won the last election, right?
Yep.
If the same exact people just go vote for the same exact, party, so that's what I'm saying is it's not as if she doesn't really even have to change anybody's mind. She just has to get the same amount of people to return and vote for her.
A lot of the people in colleges weren't able to vote 4 years ago.
Too young to vote.
Well, right. The electorate changes over 4. Sure. Yeah. I mean,
Well,
there's always
it
a new
also
group of
has
people.
to do with how motivated the Republicans are too, though. I mean, again, the Trumpies.
Right, yeah.
But I have been watching erosion ever since the Project 2025 has come out and people are much more aware of it. I have seen erosion of that hardcore Republican behind Trump, except for I shouldn't say hardcore, the people behind Trump, except for the hardcores. The absolute hardcores are still there, but I see a lot of erosion otherwise.
Well, his press conference today was really very telling, and I don't think put a good face on it for his team. I don't think. What were you going to say, Brian?
Am I better now?
Yeah.
No. After it gets going, it's fine. And then he's not doing any better for the blacks because now he says he has bigger crowds than Martin Luther King.
Yeah, he did say that. He did say that.
He's not doing good for the black vote, I'm telling you.
We know that.
Yeah.
Martin, okay. I mean,
yeah. Larger crowds
so
than Martin
March
Luther
on
King.
Washington.
Hey,
I don't
listen,
know.
he might have larger crowds than Martin Luther King,
this guy.
but Martin Luther King didn't exist in a media time when the media could drive people to things. And so, of course, he might have more, but I doubt it. I really doubt it.
Attending a rally of Martin Luther King's might also have meant arrest or physical violence upon your life, by the way.
But again, we do have photos of those crowds, and they were humongous.
Well, no, I don't think.
In fact, if you put what you just said into perspective, that we don't have the social media and the way to get out to people, it is absolutely astounding.
Well, Donald, somebody should say, Donald, your numbers don't approximate the amount of people that were at the Lincoln Memorial to hear his "I Have a Dream" speech.
Right. That's for sure.
Okay.
Great speech.
Huh?
It was a great speech.
Yeah, it's a great speech, and it wasn't even close. It wasn't. I don't think it was equal to what you had at your inauguration.
No.
So I mean, but what bothered me today about the press at this so-called press conference, and I do know that it was a wide-ranging amount of press, nobody jumps in and corrects him on the lies that he says. Yeah. And I don't understand why they don't say, would you please clarify that for us or something like that?
Well, supposedly CNN stopped the feed and started doing a bunch of the, looking into the actual truth behind some of the statements or a bunch of the statements, but they stopped the feed in order to do that.
What his speeches and what his press conferences have become is a let's count the number of lies.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's amazing. Just amazing. Did you see that today, Kevin? You saw the press conference, didn't you? Or what alleged to be a press conference?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. No, I didn't. I've been working my butt off lately, so I haven't seen anything. I'll go back and look at it.
Yeah, it's precious.
It sounds like it was a good one.
It was the Trump that has become Trump. I mean, he had more confidence when he ran back in 2016. And now he has.
I've worked myself to watch those things just so I know that, yes, that's him.
Yeah, but he has no confidence anymore.
That's good.
He really
that's
has lost it. Oh, that's exactly
why I want all these people to sit there and watch it so they can say,
yeah,
this is what we're going to elect. All the Trump people can sit there and go, this is what we're going to elect. Maybe they'll.
Yeah.
And it was like that. It was like that watching both of them. You watch Trump to watch him when he's going to go crazy and say something stupid, and you watch Biden and see when he's going to fall asleep while he's standing up. And now that we have Biden out of the mix, and now you have these two energetic people who are positive about the U.S. And you have Trump, who's like, oh, we're doing terrible. We have to make America great again. And he already had 4 years and didn't do it, So now you have all this energy, and it's going to be fun to watch the debates.
There's a great documentary on PBS this week on Biden. And the history of Biden and why he is what he is and why he reacts the way he reacts. And it's warts and all, by the way. I mean, don't go easy on him with the Anita Hill situation, documentary. But they try to say that his main motivation has been it goes back to the stuttering. And then at school, he was mocked, he was made fun of. And that's the one thing he doesn't want to have happen is people make fun of him and count him out. And that's been his entire motivation to keep moving in this particular situation. It has nothing to do with, rationality would have you say, hey, I'm not what I was. I think I better, quit this race. No, there was part of him that wanted to say, you don't believe I can do it. I can do it. It was the whole thing. The bullies were piling on him again. And
there's nothing wrong with that.
Well, right. It's a very interesting documentary if you want to get a bird's eye view of the psyche of Joe Biden, who
is it a brand new one or is it fairly old? Because I think I've seen one like that.
No, this is brand new. This is 2 hours long, and
that was on Frontline on Tuesday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I haven't watched it yet, but I haven't recorded it.
Well, I can tell you that if Harris wins, and particularly if she wins, by obvious margin, but really even if she wins, Biden is going to be treated very well by historians.
Yep.
I mean, he will be marked with ending the Trump dynasty or whatever, attempted. I mean, whatever you want to label it. I mean,
it's also going to be.
I know how this works, so I'm just saying
he's going to be written on the noble side of the ledger.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying, like Jefferson, if he put 3 things on his tombstone, father to Beau, president of the United States, ender of Trump. I mean, like Jefferson did, I'm just saying, I think it's going to be one of the 3 things that he would want etched in there, because if that's what happens,
fine with me.
His selflessness made it possible.
But I want to know how are they going to answer his constant declaration that he's the only one that can beat Trump? That's the only reason why he's still in the race, because he's the only one that can beat Trump.
Don't forget that.
But I can respect someone who says that and has that confidence, but then comes the time where they said, you know what?
Maybe
I was wrong.
I was wrong.
I can't do it. And instead of
they twisted my arm and they practically pummeled me to death.
There are some stories coming out, however, that Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and a bunch of the people he respects, all came to him and said, if you don't quit this race, then we're going to force you out. And we'd rather you do it on your own.
Yeah, but however he came to the decision, but that's still my point. Had he done it that way, we might still get the result, but he doesn't get any credit. He would just look bad. But because, that to me, that's really the president's real job, is to take in the information and do what he or she knows is right in their mind for the country, regardless of what it means for them, what it means for the party, what it means for whoever. It's and even when people are telling them one thing, if they know they need to do something different, it's to do it. So for him to say, I'm the only one that can win and I'm running and I'm not going anywhere, and then in a few weeks take in the information. I mean, no one would make that decision overnight. I mean, come on. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's no person alive that would just be like, oh, yeah, you're right. Last night it was really bad. I think I'm starting to lose it. I'm out of here. I mean, everybody would have to be prodded along for a few weeks to give up. But really, the only thing that these men or women have worked for their entire life, the crowning achievement of their time on earth, I mean, so for him to then say, you know what, you've convinced me, and I will step aside and I will hand it over to someone who I think can win, because ending a Trump dynasty before it even begins is far more important than a second Joe Biden term. You know, I mean, look, I mean, I think it'll take 20 or 30 years, but once it really all gets sorted out and he's gone, I believe that it'll reflect positively on him incredibly well. You know,
Yeah, and I think that the thing, Josh, you say is like the Trump dynasty. I mean, if he gets out of office, if he were to get back into office, I mean, he wants his daughter to get in there. I mean, he's going to want his whole family lined up as presidents. You know, just continue on.
Yeah, they're going to want this MAGA, you know, line of succession.
Okay, let's for a moment think here about what happens. Trump loses. What is the future for the Republican Party at this point?
You mean before or after they blow us up?
That's right. What's going to happen then?
I mean, what is the future of the Republican Party after this? Because they're going to look like fools for having, well, you know, what's the old line from Star Wars? Who's the bigger fool? You know, the fool who follows the fool. You know.
Yeah, right. Well, I think it. I mean, look, I think they survive it because there's always going to be a two-party system or more in this country, and there are, you know, obviously millions, hundreds of, millions of people dedicated to a particular political philosophy that is going to fall on that side of the ledger, which is fine.
Yeah, well, I think perhaps it's going to be more hurtful to the Democratic Party if the Republicans suddenly say, okay, we had our little craziness and all of that, now let's start going for sanity. And they start coming up with sane people instead of, you know, another Donald Trump.
Yeah, right. But, you know, but I guess I'm not out to, and I know, you know, you guys aren't either. I'm not out to have Democratic dominance. I'm not out to have
Democratic
this nation be the best that it can be, you know? So, I mean, if they took a majority back, but it was run by sensible people, I might not have, you know, cheerfulness over it, right? Because they're not going to follow a lot of the policies that I want. But, you know, I mean, I think we talked about this months ago. It's like, how many people on this panel even would be like, you know what, you can't have, you know, we just take Bush back, right? You know, like, yeah, just, that's fine. We all couldn't, that's fine. We'll take him. You know, you can't have Biden, you can't have Harris, you can't have Trump. You got to have, all right, yeah, we'll just take Bush or Obama back. It's fine.
Well, what I've been witnessing, from talking to the voters is that the vacuum is very likely going to favor libertarians. And that's what I'm feeling. Just from the way the public is like, okay, those Republicans are really too extreme. And if Trump is beaten, then that might then push them toward that direction. But that is one of the paths.
Define to me what a libertarian is. It's kind of like a Unitarian, isn't it? I mean,
a libertarian is sort of halfway between the Democrats and the Republicans in that they believe in the populist type of thing. They want people to be good and happy, but it has to be fiscally responsible. That's their big thing. They want a balanced budget, and they also very much want corporations and privatization, and they want you, you know, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and go and, you know, we want the American dream to be there so that we have the ability to get rich. They're very much into corporatism.
I just never, the libertarians just never seem to be fish nor fowl, you know? And I like some kind of thing I can get behind.
Well, they also don't want government in their lives at all. That is a major thing, and that is very popular, as I think I mentioned.
Well, wait a minute. Does that mean that then you don't want any kind of health things solved, and you don't want
They
you
want
don't want the
what
government
they consider logical. They feel
I mean,
that
Well, no.
privatization
I mean,
can
Bree's
fix
Bree's got something, but for example, a libertarian would take something like some things the left would accept, like stop and frisk, for example, right? A libertarian would be like, whoa, time the fuck out. Nope, absolutely not. Stuff like that, so it's 50-50.
Yeah. Anything that keeps the government out of our lives. I don't want to be taxed by the government. Right. I don't want to be searched by the government. I don't want to be told anything by the government. Yeah.
See,
let me be free to make my money or fail.
Well, here's the kind of politics I believe in. I think that they should tax us like crazy, but do good things with the money. The trouble is they don't do anything good with the money. That's the problem. Bree, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, a couple things. One, when you ask people if they're going to vote, don't believe that poll, because I've done a lot of surveys, and that's called a social desirability bias. And what it means is, when you ask somebody if they're going to do something that's the right thing to do, that's a positive thing, people will always be like, yeah, I'm going to do that. And they never go to the same degree that they say they will. Ever.
Are you kind of forcing the answer that you want?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to be a good person and make a lot of money in life? No, I don't want to do that. Of course you do. So
that's true. I mean, this is what we ran into with young people. They're worse than most people because their lives are focused on things that are not what drives a voter to go to the polls.
They don't even read anymore. But the other thing I'll mention to you is I was telling you the other day about Georgia. It turns out that they've passed a new election board law, the Georgia State Election Board. They passed it a day or two ago, and it allows the local board to refuse to certify election results. So they now have the ability to officially block so if Harris Walsh wins Georgia, they could refuse to certify that result. It's
We've
law.
had that in Texas for a whole year.
What'd you say?
We've had that law in Texas a whole year. The individual counties can say, no, I don't accept this as a result of this election, and refuse to do it. That was passed a year ago in Texas.
It doesn't allow local election boards to refuse to certify election results, does it? What's it called?
Yeah, I forget what it's called, but yes, it does. They could throw out all 2 million votes in Harris County for Houston because they don't like the results of the election.
Okay, I didn't know that this one in Georgia just passed.
Right,
but in Texas, I'm not familiar with a specific law.
How does that line up with the constitutionality of all of that?
It's obviously unconstitutional, and I think even this Supreme Court would have to, once it reaches the court, would have to vote it down.
Well, one of the things that the Constitution does allow is if you end up with I can't remember what it's called, where there is nobody who has officially reached the proper number of electoral votes, then they can just go in and have a meeting and say, I don't like what I see. This is what we're going to do. That is
whatever happened to this concept of people. Whatever happened to this concept of people voting? I mean, really.
Trump is what happened
to America.
Trump is what happened to it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the answer.
I mean, I never heard of anything so outlandish in my life. The idea is in America, you go to the polls, you vote, your vote is counted, and the person who gets the largest vote or whatever is the winner.
No,
Texas is different. People like him challenged all that shit.
Yeah, but he didn't win any of the challenges.
Well, yeah, but he brought it up.
Yeah.
That's all he had to do is cause question.
Yeah. Bree?
Yep.
The Georgia rule is different. It is a new provision. It provides it's sort of like an extra strength blockage. Texas is just following regular rules that all states follow. That the traditional approach is local officials have to certify results, and then disputes are handled through established legal processes, such as recounts or court challenges.
Mm-hmm.
There's no provision in the Texas law that allows the local boards to refuse certification based on their own inquiries. So Georgia is adding an extra layer.
Basically a veto, right? Like a veto?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's right. They're Republicans, and they're saying, if we don't like it, we're going to block it. And they now have, this is law, it was passed August 7th, to a provision to the local election boards. I think there's going to be, look, Trump would never accept it, and they're stronger now in terms of, their positioning. So let's see how it goes.
Well, it's all silly. I mean, it's just, come on, what happened to America? Where is America? What's happened to this country that I was taught in school had a certain dignity?
Ask Reagan. Think about what happened to your whole industry, Alex. We used to have all the regulations. The radio stations, not only do we have the 7 AM, 7 FM, and 5 TV, we also had the need to serve the local community. We had to have a certain amount
in the public interest, convenience, and necessity.
Thank you.
Regulation.
Yep.
Deregulation. Well, they
when you talk about that, we were talking about the other day about Palestine.
By the way, don't blame Reagan for that. That wasn't Reagan. That was.
It was started by Reagan and finished by Clinton.
Finished by Clinton.
Finished by Clinton.
Clinton put the nail in the coffin. He thought wait a minute. Hold on a second. He thought he was doing something else, Clinton, but he wasn't. Anyway, what were we going to say, Bree?
I wanted to bring up the issue that I guess has been in the recent news cycle with Waltz and the stolen valor comment. Did you already talk about that?
What is this? What are you calling it?
Well, the latest, they're looking at Tim Waltz and his service in the National Guard.
It wasn't the National Guard. I heard today it was the Army.
No, it's the National Guard.
No, it's National Guard.
It is National Guard.
25 years National Guard.
I think what happened was, and I'm not sure of the timing. I have to look at it, but I think he may have disagreed with President Bush's war in Iraq, and I think he also had he may have had a daughter or something. I think those may have been the reasons why he decided not to deploy to Iraq. He wanted to run for office.
He did not decide not to deploy. That came after he retired. He had retired for 5 months before that.
That's correct. Yeah. I've got the whole thing. I'm going to go get it for you guys. I'll post it.
Okay, I'm just trying to seek clarity because he was in a program where he would have had a higher level of rank, but he dropped out of that. But if he had stayed in, he would have attained it.
That's right. The question is, he was already, just like Charlie said, he was many years past his normal retirement. He actually stayed on longer.
He spent 25 years in the military.
He retired as a command sergeant major. There's not much higher up an enlisted person can go.
Well, they changed that because he did not retire with that rank.
Yeah, no.
Because he didn't finish the courses. In other words, I mean, it's very, very minor things, but I wouldn't embellish my CV because I would be embarrassed if somebody caught me doing that, and so I go the other way.
There's no proof. In fact, the military has come out and said that he is the rank that he says he is, that he retired at.
Let me ask you this, though. Does it really matter? The guy spent 25 years in the military.
Right.
Yeah.
Advance on the
I mean, the U.S. Army did acknowledge he achieved the rank, but retired at the other rank, and because of basically, again, retiring out before completing a certain number of courses. So he was awarded the rank, but didn't go to operational status at that rank. Instead, retired at one rung lower in order to be, done with his military service at that time. But the rank was achieved. A lot of that stuff happens a lot. I mean, there are a ton of guys who retired and got promoted after they retired, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, World War II was famous for that. Guys who got discharged as a lieutenant, but were later post-service promoted to captain to give them benefits and things like that as a thank you to their service, but never wore captain's bars in theater. So these logistical movements of the military happen all the time. My understanding from some information was that a few years before he retired voluntarily, the Army had tried to medically retire him due to hearing loss from his service in the artillery field, and that he fought to stay in the military for several years after that, to continue to serve, even though they had come to him and tried to medically discharge him before that. He appealed and apparently won the process.
Okay, please explain this to me. People only have a certain amount of years, okay? He's been a high school coach, high school teacher. He's been a governor. He's been. Was he in Congress? He was in Congress too. He was a congressman. And he was in the military for 25 years. When did he fit that in?
Well, that's because he was in the Minnesota Army National Guard.
Okay.
Which meant he served his 1 weekend a month, his 2 weekends a year, or his 2 weeks a year, and his unit may have been deployed more than that for a war theater or a training theater for several months at a time. I don't know if he had any of those deployments, but occasionally, your workplace or someone will have someone who they do their 1 weekend, their 2 weeks, but then sometimes you say, hey, we're activating your unit for 6 months to go to this base to train or drill, and then you can come home.
So anywhere along the line, he could have quit.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And he never did.
Yes.
So why assail him for any of that?
Right.
They're trying to swift boat him like they did John Kerry.
What people would have to remember is that even if I granted the premise that, as soon as the war started, he retired and got out, which I don't grant, but even if I did, it's an all-volunteer army. Volunteer means volunteer.
This is all old news. This is 2006, right? When he was running before Senate or whatever, this started coming up. And they're just going through the same cycle. They're digging to see what they can find.
All digging. The swift boating, do you know where that comes from?
Yeah.
One of Trump's team is the guy who came up with swift boating.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it came from.
Yeah, so, but, as I was saying, it's a volunteer army. I mean, volunteer means even if you're in and a war starts and they come to you and say, hey, war just started, do you want to go or do you want to retire? That means you have an option. You can choose whatever option you want. If you say, you know what, I've been in for 25 years, I got a wife, I got a young child. Look, this war shit is a young man's game. What the fuck's wrong with that?
Somebody.
How about going in the first place?
Right.
Yeah, bones first.
Somebody was trying to say something.
His commanding officer was in the Washington Post who said, I would have analyzed it and challenged him. So he said, I would have told him, suck it up, we're going. So is he saying that he didn't have a right? That doesn't make sense to me. He says he went above him to get his retirement papers signed. I don't know.
But obviously, even if that were true, he followed the process.
Regardless, it doesn't matter.
The process worked.
But what I'm saying is, what if he had every right to do this, many people did. What if he disagreed with the war in Iraq? That would be a powerful message. Or did he retire? I would want to know. Was it just, he just all of a sudden thought, well, that's enough. because I don't know how these people make that decision. Most people I know, my brother was in the Marines, my dad was in the Army. You're once a Marine, always a Marine. He wouldn't. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's different ways to look at it, I guess.
So if you were 62 years old, you'd go to war? And because you're a Marine, you were 62 years old? That doesn't make sense. Just because you were in the Marines.
If
you were 62 years old. Scenario.
I didn't think he was that old.
I said,
I thought he was.
If someone was 62 years old and they were in the Marines and they said you got to go to war, that means you go to war?
Oh.
No.
I don't know. Can you be in the Marines at 62?
I don't
just
use it as a scenario, Bree. It was just a scenario, Bree.
Yeah. Well, yes, absolutely. If I'm a Marine and I'm able and they ask me, I go. Yes.
Okay.
You're dead.
Okay, I posted to the chat the whole story. I even gave the link to it to start it off. Anybody want to read the whole thing? It's there.
Oh, okay. All right.
He retired to go into Congress. He retired to run for Congress, and he did more for the military in Congress than he ever could have done on the field in Afghanistan.
I mean, I looked on my calculator, and the math that I did showed me that he served 24 more years than Trump.
Yes.
So, maybe I was wrong. I don't know. I mean,
well,
again,
that's why they're using
their
math.
campaign. Only someone who wasn't in the military would campaign against someone who was on some technical bullshit.
This guy,
Vance was in the military.
Okay. This guy is a good guy. You know, he has a laudable history of doing really good stuff. What are they trying to get him on? That he didn't spend enough time, like 25 years in the military? What is that all about? And secondly,
point is what are they trying to get him on?
And the other thing they're trying to get him on is tampons.
Maybe he had bone spurs and he didn't tell anybody.
No, but he had tampons. How dare he? You know?
And then into the girls' bathroom once. So it's fucking bullshit.
He did a lot of stuff in China, and so they're trying to nail him and say he's a commie because he was in there teaching
He's a
English and over there doing some work.
I know a communist when I see them. They usually look like they live in, say, Oakland. All right. But
we're also forgetting that.
Well, wait a minute. Let me finish this. Let me finish what I was saying. To even implicate for one moment that this guy is a communist is just absolutely absurd and uncalled for. Because, you know, I know what a communist is. I bet Trump doesn't know what a communist is. I bet if you asked him to define a communist, he couldn't do it. You know, it's just a word that he brought back, oddly enough, from the 50s. Okay. All right. So, I mean, the last communist I knew was living in Oakland a couple of years ago by himself. Okay. So, you know.
Well, they say that, Kamala is very radical left wing. And they said the most radical in Congress. And then I'm thinking, like, well, but what about AOC? I thought she was the most.
To begin with,
they don't care. They just lie.
I only wish that Kamala was as lefty as they say she is, because I would really love her. Okay, I'll tell you what. On the Daily Show, last night, one of the guys who was hosting it or whatever said, Walls is kind of like your old uncle who pulls a quarter out from behind your ear. You know, I mean, he really looks like that. He's almost a little too good for me, goody for me. I don't like people that goody, but that's what it takes, and he is that goody. There's nothing terrible with this guy. Yeah, he may.
Other than he looks like Phil Meyer.
We don't even know what Phil Meyer looks like anymore. Okay.
Oh yeah, I do.
Because he doesn't.
He just had lunch with him or something. Yeah.
Because he doesn't call the show anymore, so I don't know what he looks like.
Well, he's tired of being told to shut up.
Oh.
But over time.
You mean, in other words, tired of being told to shut up so somebody else can talk?
That's correct.
Yeah.
I see.
80 88, 89 more days or whatever, I think that Harris and Walz, they continue to go around. They go to these rallies. They have a smile on their face. They say, I mean, as compared to the other side, just shows up and just grumbles. Oh, everything's just so bad. Oh, the communists are gonna come take you over. They won't even let you drink Diet Mountain Dew. I mean, just keep going, buddy. Just keep fucking
Just
talking.
keep going at it. Yeah,
that's
yeah,
fine.
Yeah.
One of the things they show in research that when this is with restaurants, when you give positive reviews, you can give 100. People won't remember it, but you give one negative, everybody remembers it. So, that might be their strategy.
But there is another factor here that we failed to mention, and that's the factor of being on a roll. And the fact is that if Kamala can keep the kind of energy that she's got going now, it'll sweep her right into the White House, because a lot of people don't want to vote. A lot of people don't want to vote for a loser. Okay? Yeah. And if Trump starts looking like a loser, he's going to lose votes just based on that. Republicans will vote for the Democrats. They don't want to vote for a loser.
Well, they also don't want to be second-class citizens if the new administration takes over and it happens to be Democrat.
Yeah. But I got, if you're a Republican, you're watching this show tonight, I'm telling you, you should probably vote for Kamala. And the reason is these guys are too weird, too crazy, too self-absorbed, too out for themselves, and you shouldn't even want to be part of that. Now, granted, you may not like Kamala, and you might not like Walz, but he can't be, they are not anywhere near as onerous as Donald Trump is. So if it's a case of the lesser of two evils, I got news about where you should be voting. Okay, case made.
The one Republican that's listening to the show heard that.
Yeah.
And I think it comes down to Georgia. Just remember that.
I don't know if it comes down to Georgia. Last night you were saying it came down to Philadelphia.
Well,
What?
Georgia, I've seen exactly what he said about Georgia, and it's true.
Well, I think he can win Georgia, and I'll tell you why. A lot of black women in that state, and they don't like what Trump's been doing, Right. And while they might not have gone out for Joe Biden because there's still a question about Joe Biden among the blacks, they're going to go out for Kamala. And that's why they might win easily in Georgia,
Here's another question for you, Alex. You said that RFK Jr. was taking from Trump, but what they are showing is that since Kamala announced, RFK Jr. has lost support. Doesn't that show that he might be taking from there?
No, it could very well be that those people who are for RFK Jr. find Kamala to be more acceptable and a more logical winner.
Yeah, I mean, the headline of the Washington Post today is a very lengthy story about RFK now noticeably, through polling, taking votes away from Trump. I mean, they have a pretty lengthy story just today, published 6 or 7 hours ago.
Well,
that is based off of, a couple of the states that polling came back from, battleground states in some cases, that show Harris up over 50% now. It was 42, and the lead is because of RFK Jr. in states where he's on the ballot as a third party.
I saw it was Harris 50, Trump 42, and RFK 6. Yep.
Right.
Okay, well, what is that again? Give us those numbers again.
It was Kamala 50%, Trump 42,
right,
and RFK 6.
Now, what poll was that?
Washington Post. I don't remember who conducted it. It was.
I can't remember either.
It
was legit.
Who was it? I mean, it was a big polling outfit.
It was
just one crazy. I mean, it was a huge poll. Somebody. I mean, it was a huge. One of the normal outfits that you see.
That's the best number I've seen her have so far.
Correct. That's why it was big news today.
Could be my old, that's why I was on my old company, Maris.
But
it was somebody.
But do you know who? Do you know who Trump referenced? Rasmussen, which is the biggest fake polling organization in America. You know, he wins. He wins by a landslide in Rasmussen.
5. Yeah, he's up 5 points in Rasmussen.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't think even you or I believe that at this point. You know, I mean, I don't necessarily believe 50 to 42, but I'll take it. You know. I think it's all pretty good, you know.
To me, one of the other things, Harris is going up in the polls. Trump is going down in the polls.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah.
It was Marquette lost.
Okay, Marquette.
Yeah,
Marquette. Yeah.
When will Kamala Harris have her sit-down interview? You know, with one of these, you know, the big reporter.
I don't think she's afraid to do it. I just think she feels it's a little too early to do it. You know,
it'll be after the convention.
I don't think. Yeah, I think she wants to get past the convention in order to do that. I don't think that she's afraid to do it. Let's face it, Kamala's a pretty ballsy broad, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, she's
Tell it to my face.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like she's going to go into an interview with somebody and not stand up pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about that is, and look, she will do them, and all candidates should and everything, but I think what people should remember about it is, look, they're campaigning, okay? And what they're doing right now is working. So why would they change that? I mean, it's like people who say, oh, you just beat it every time you just run the ball. You get all these yards. You scared to throw the ball? What, are you fucking stupid? I mean, we're winning, you know.
Well, the reason why Trump gave a what do you call it today? A press conference today, was that he really doesn't want to discuss anything with anybody, but he would rather do it in a press conference or an interview than to have to go out on the road and see smaller crowds and all of that and be
because he's not getting any attention. No, I mean,
that's exactly it.
I mean, but for the people who say Harris should sit down and do a 60 Minutes or whatever, if that's their criteria for, you know, who they want to see as president, perfectly fine. I do not challenge that whatsoever. They are allowed to weigh it however they would like. All I'm saying is the campaign is probably looking at it and saying, yeah, sure, we'll do one, but let's not really hurry up because what we're doing right now is working pretty good. So why would we change that strategy?
However,
we'll start throwing the ball when we need to.
I do think that Kamala has to start coming out with more policy. She hasn't done that yet, but she may be waiting for the convention because usually the talking points are created by the convention, if you remember.
Yes, it is August the 8th. Yes, I mean, yeah.
One policy she definitely came out with is she wants to codify Roe v. Wade. She said that over and over again. So don't tell me she hasn't done any policy.
Yeah. And she also talks about the FTC a lot, which is something that they've done. And the only thing that bothers me is she hasn't said, go screw you to the people who want Lena out. But at the same time, I think she doesn't want to upset the big donors yet. I think
I don't think it's that. I think it's that she doesn't want to make statements she's going to have to walk back.
Yeah, but I don't think I mean, the fact that she's been bragging about what the FTC has done, I think she is in favor of it, but she doesn't want to make it too obvious because then she loses all those donors.
And it's not as if Trump has been consistently sitting down with Lester Holt and Leslie Stahl and all that. I mean, the 3 interviews a week he does on Fox and Friends, I wouldn't, I don't know that we check those off as sit-down interview. I mean, so I mean, again, if that's what people would like, that is a fair and acceptable, desire of your candidate for president.
Well, he
claimed, don't criticize her for it. The other guy isn't exactly doing it either.
Trump was saying that she isn't doing press conferences like he's doing right here. But if I remember correctly, in the very beginning of all of this, she did do press conferences. So.
I mean, right? They don't do one every day.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's our theme song. Boy, this is getting to be quite a year, isn't it?
Yeah.
Year of living crazily. It is really nuts. And I don't know if it's going to get any less nuts as we go along. Although I think everybody's going to get very tired of Donald Trump. There's no question about it. I think we already have. In fact, there's such Trump fatigue that I think some people have welcomed this change just because it gives you a sense of a breather, a cleansing of the mind, you know. But Trump's still using the same playbook. Go ahead, do it. You know, you're going to do it right into to losing the election and having to have an insurrection. Anyway, listen, thank you so much for being with us this evening. Josh, of course, and Jeff. You haven't said a word tonight, but that's okay by us.
That's all right.
You know, and thanks to Alan, and thanks to Roberta, and thanks to Brian Neary, and thanks to Charlie Wallace. Kevin, good having you here, and of course, Bree, second night in a row, good having you here as well. Everybody, give a big wave goodbye, and I will give a big wave goodbye at you, okay? There they go. That's our citizen panel for tonight. They'll be back again tomorrow night, and you can be part of it too. Same time, same station in life. Next is the intersection with Amy Manuel. Okay, be sure to check her out. I'll see you tomorrow night, same time, same station in life. And in the meantime, as always, if you see her, tell her I love her. Okay, bye bye.